Hello, kids, adults, and whoever is watching. So, what I have here today is some information on food science that I brought here since I had to do this for a project. And so, let's begin with fermentation. So basically, there are specific microorganisms that are either already on the food or are introduced to it to induce fermentation. So basically, there are two types of fermentation that were mentioned in the textbook, and they have the same type of fuel, which is sugar, but they have different byproducts. So they have lactic acid bacteria that make lactic acid, and the byproducts are things like yogurt sometimes, depends on what you're making. And you have yeast, which make alcohol. And so, specifically for lactic acid foods, they're very helpful for your body since it makes an environment that's good for beneficial bacteria or probiotics to grow. And then you ingest them. Good for you. Okay, so moving on, there's more about yeast. So, the fermentation of yeast also has another byproduct, carbon dioxide. So yeah, this is beneficial for bread to help it get its airy structure. And the other half of that equation is the gluten. So how gluten comes about is that there's glutenin and gliadin within the flour, and when you add water and you knead it, it comes together to make the gluten. So you want to guess what it does? I'm gonna call this out. So basically what the gluten does is it traps in all the carbon dioxide that's being made, sort of like how that bubble was containing all the air that I was blowing into it. And the process is very similar in cakes as well. The gluten does the same thing. It helps trap in the carbon dioxide, but instead of yeast, it uses stuff like baking soda that make carbon dioxide when it bakes, and then it just, gets trapped in it. And creaming is another way that they get bubbles into your foods and stuff. So basically how that works is that there's no chemical reactions. So softened butter and sugar are beaten together, and what that does is that just creates air bubbles. It's kind of like this, like here. See this solution of bubbles? And then if I do this aggressively enough, here, it's full of bubbles. Wow. And yeah, all the bubbles are then incorporated into the final product. Moving on, this topic is a lot more straightforward. So basically, all life on Earth requires water to live, and if there's enough water in your food, microbes and other things can grow in it. And so the water activity of a food is a way to describe how much water is in it, and if it's above a 0.85 out of 1, there's a risk of mold and other microorganisms growing in it, and it should probably be stored in the fridge or a freezer. So foods with much lower water activity are less likely to grow microbes and can be stored outside of the fridge. Like, for example, we have this cheese. I just pulled it out of my fridge. If I left it out for a few hours, I would not want to eat it. I would not feel safe. And here we have a bag of chips. I don't know how long I've owned this. It's just been sitting on my floor, but it has a low water activity. It doesn't need to be stored in the fridge. I probably will not die if I eat this. And moving on, so we have the Maillard reaction. So this reaction is a chemical process that generally turns things brown. And so basically what happens, well, as with I think all chemical reactions, you need to add heat. And when you add the heat, the proteins and the carbohydrates in whatever you're cooking, well, it's got to have those, they will react, which results in them creating new compounds and flavors and that browning. And so yeah, those are some topics that I learned in food science. Thank you very much.